Sunny ASMR. Hi. Hey. Hi. Welcome. Welcome to today's video. I wanted to do something a little bit different for this intro. I wanted to try out some producers that there's almost an entire episode, and each episode's almost an hour long with no dialogue. And it's one of the best episodes of the entire series, in my opinion. It's very spooky. Super spooky. The premise of this season is our gang of friends has graduated high school. And at this point in the series, the season goes on. Really dark season, but with some really killer episodes. The musical episode where they all sing is in this season, and I know it's kind of kitschy, but I love that episode. I love the musical episode. I think that those can be really bad if they're not executed well. Grey's Anatomy, I'm looking at you. But Buffy Summers, the former librarian of Sunnydale High School and the occult expert of the Scooby Gang, born into a family who worked for the Watchers Council for at least 3 generations. Giles initially rebelled against his family legacy and became a rogue warlock until the death of a close friend led him to return to the council's fold. As the Watcher of Buffy Summers, Giles developed a father-like bond with his charge, not only training her but also fighting by her side and openly defying the council in order to save Buffy's life, which ultimately led to his dismissal from the council. Fired from the council, Giles struggled to find his way among the Scoobies until he became the owner of the Magic Box shop and eventually reinstated in his position as Watcher. He left Sunnydale in 2001 when he came to the realization that he had to leave Buffy so she would embrace the responsibilities of adulthood. He does come back in season 7, with the first evil and all that apocalypse stuff happening. He comes back. Angel. Angel was one of the most well-known vampires in all of vampiric history, legendary for both his savage villainy and his great heroism. Born Liam in 1727 in Galway, Ireland, he was sired by Darla in 1753, taking the name Angelus, and was dubbed the Scourge of Europe, earning notoriety for being one of the most sadistic and brutal vampires in history. However, in 1898, Angelus was cursed by the Caldrash people as vengeance for killing their favorite daughter. They returned his soul, forcing him to live eternity in guilt over the countless crimes he committed. In the late 20th century, Angel, as he began calling himself, became an ally and lover of the current Slayer, Buffy Summers. After the two were forced to realize their limitations as a couple, Angel left Buffy and moved to Los Angeles. And thus the show Angel was born. Cordelia Chase. Cordelia Chase was an agent of the powers that be. She attended Sunnydale High School as a teenager, where she was a popular cheerleader known for her standoffish queen bee personality and attitude. Since the school was situated on a hellmouth, Cordelia also became familiar with demons and mystical occurrences, even helping to fight them as part of the Scooby Gang. After graduating high school, Cordelia moved to Los Angeles, where she joined supernatural detective agency Angel Investigations, and she continues her story arc on that show. Spike. Spike was a famous and widely feared vampire turned in 1880. He was well known among both humans and demons for having faced and killed two slayers during his unlife, as well as his history of torturing his victims with railroad spikes. His reputation for evil and bloodshed was second only to that of his grandsire Angelus. In his human life, William was an unsuccessful and unappreciated romantic poet known as William the Bloody, for his bloody awful poetry. Though after he became a vampire, that moniker was repurposed to imply that he was very violent. After being sired by Drusilla, who was sired by Angel, he reinvented himself and terrorized Europe alongside Drusilla, Angel, and Darla throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. His bio is really long, so I'm actually not going to read it all. I'm going to give you a quick summary. He comes to Sunnydale, like I said in season 2, becomes the big bad, leaves when his plot fails, comes back and makes guest appearances here and there until season 4, where that military presence on the college campus implants a chip in his brain that makes it so that he can't feed on people, which essentially kind of like neuters him as a vampire, since he can't feed on people, he can't hurt people without getting like shocks in his head, which is how he ends up becoming integrated with Buffy and the Scoobies. Since he can't hurt people, he figures out that he can't hurt demons and kind of helps them, but unwillingly, because I mean, like, he 2,000 years old. She was originally known as